Grand Rising, family of light. How is everyone doing today? I hope you guys are having a beautiful day today on the 19th of, September 2024. I do have a special guest today. A lot of you already know who she is. She's been in the limelight for a few years as well, bringing us truth and information about what's really going on. But before I bring on Michelle Fielding, I would like to welcome everybody who is here. I am broadcasting on all my platforms. That is YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and then, of course, Twitter. So I want to welcome everybody at this time. Thank you so much for being here. This is unusual for me to be doing a live at this time. As you guys know, I normally broadcast in the evening, 6 o'clock Pacific time, 9 o'clock Eastern. But due to Michelle's time difference, because she's about, I think, 10 hours ahead of me, we're making this happen so that you guys could also have an opportunity to hear what she has today say regarding all of the stuff that is happening right now at this time. I mean, I don't know if you guys know what's going on in the news, but, the deep state already approved for the missile strike against Russia. So, it seems like, things are about to hit the fan, especially as we get close to the November event. But before I bring her on, for those that don't know me, I am the author of The Secret Government, Invisible Architects, and Our Cosmic Origin, which are both available on Amazon. And Michelle Fielding is an intuitive business advisor who uses her extrasensory skills and unique gifts to add an additional depth and dimension to business vision. She offers practical and visionary advice while supporting key personal and individual managers so that they can successfully and intuitively manage even the most demanding business operations. So with no further ado, let's welcome Michelle Fielding. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Ismael. How are you?
I'm wonderful, my friend. How you been?
Well, we saw each other, it must have been, 15 months ago when we were in Kauai. Mm-hmm. And if you remember, we went to that amazing show, that luau with the fire and the dancers. That was quite an extraordinary evening. Do you remember?
I sure do. That was exactly about a year ago, last summer.
Yeah. I still have the shells that they gave us. They gave us all like this shell necklace. Mm-hmm. And I still have mine. I have a Buddha in my lounge. So what I've done is I've put the shell necklace around my Buddha. So I don't know what you've done with yours, but I still have it.
It's somewhere in my house. I know I didn't throw it away. I kept it as a memory, as a reminder that I did attend a couple of the Truther events.
You did? Yeah.
Yeah, it was such a great time to be there with other like-minded individuals, I'm excited for everything that's going to be unfolding in the next, would you say, next few weeks, months?
Oh. Well, yes.
What do your guides tell you?
Well, the thing is, Ishmael, that I often get visions first, and it's quite difficult to know the time zones. Because in the past, they've been sometimes 2 or 3 years out, and some of them are only just sort of happening now. And then other times, especially right now, things seem to be going a bit quicker. So one vision I had last summer was that I saw Mohammed bin Salman in a meeting in the Arctic. He seemed to be underground and surrounded by a lot of military people, and he seemed to be in the room with a lot of other people from the Middle East. And what they seemed to be discussing, or that's how it seemed to me, was that they were discussing BRICS and something to do with the financial system. So I said about that at the time, and then time went on. And then probably, I would say 2 months ago, it was announced that Saudi Arabia have joined BRICS, and they've also joined something called Enbridge, which is a cross-border payment system, which is going to run all of the CBDCs. Now, the CBDCs have been given a bad rep because people think it's going to be a mechanism for control. But CBDC actually stands for Centralized Banking Digital Currency, not central bank digital currency.
Mhm.
And so what I've recently just channeled is that the Enbridge platform will be linked to Starlink, which I've talked about for many years now. And so it's going to be overseen by the military, this financial system. And the link back to Salman is that they've told me that he's like the king move, and that Mr. T, or 45, is the queen move. So the two of them together have got some kind of significant role in the unveiling of how the worldwide financial system is going to go. So in terms of what you were asking me about visions, as I said, that was a year ago, and it's only sort of just come round. So it's not always easy to interpret time, because it depends again on how much the collective is ready and awake to sort of bear these, you know, to work with these things anyway.
Right, yeah. Especially since they did try a second assassination attempt on Mr. T. I like
Yeah.
the word that you use. Let's just use Mr. T, because some people get, oh, he's not 45 or 47. He's actually 19, right? If you go according to the Constitution. But for the
Right.
sake of, you know, picking the right term to describe our commander-in-chief here in the States, let's just call him Mr. T. I was informed that this is probably not the last time, but they're going to keep trying. They're going to keep trying till the November event. And I was also informed that he has not only special protection, but from Earth type, you know, agencies, but he also has the protection of the Galactics at this time, because, you know, they're making sure that his win is inevitable. What do you foresee happening in the November event? I definitely foresee Mr. T coming back to the office. What are your thoughts?
So the November event is just a story. And so really, whichever way it goes is all just part of a distraction to take everyone away from what's really going on. And what's really going on is that in the background, you're having something called a transitional government or a new setup. So I've been talking about this for a little while. I thought it might be something like Project 2025. Project 2025 is a template for how you devolve decision-making to we the people. And so what's actually going on in the background, as you've already seen, is that Musk has been appointed as the Department of Government Efficiency head, and which I predicted a year ago. I said that Musk would have a presidential role. So that's already happened. That's another prediction that came round. I also said about a year ago that Robert F.K. Jr. would pull out of the election for health reasons. And at that time, I thought that was because he was going to be unwell. But now what we're seeing is because he's going to be like a health ambassador. So he pulled out of the election for health reasons, meaning he's going to be an ambassador of health. So what they're giving to me at the moment is these words ambassador. Okay, so what's all the election is really about, the event, sorry, is about, is just keeping us all the normal people arguing about left, right. But in the background, they're setting up the devolved systems of finance, government, education, all those things, communications, and it's just buying time. Because all those systems are about technology, which is overseen by Space Force. And Space Force has to get all of that aligned worldwide, because we're creating a worldwide military peace plan. And so in terms of who's going to win or not going to win, there are options that they're deciding. So when I look into it, there are about 3 different lanes that they might go down. And one of them might be that there's a 50-50 win. So you get a hung government. And one of them might be that it doesn't go ahead at all. So one of the things that I've also looked into is whatever happens on that night or around that period of time, ultimately there's going to be a pulse to the government anyway. Something's going to happen, and it could be that everybody who we consider to be a president or a leader is pulled out of that role, and you go into some sort of military law, which won't be seen with soldiers on the ground and things like that. In fact, you're already in military law in your country. But what it will show the people is that your country can actually run without any elected leadership. And this is how they're going to move people into this devolved setup. They're going to create, I think what's going to happen is they're going to create some big drama again around the event, the election event. And then I don't know how they're going to do it exactly, but it's going to lead to nobody being formally in charge. And then they're going to be able to bring in these ambassadors of health, ambassadors of government like Musk, plus a lot of other names who are going to help people lead. They're going to lead people towards, well, why don't we think about what we want for ourselves? You know, we don't need a particular government head in order to do that. So I think it's going to be a mixture of something like that, Ishmael. I don't know what you think about that, if you've had a different vision or channeling about that. But I'd be interested to hear what you've had around that.
Sure. So according to my transmissions from the Galactic Alliance, I've been informed that it's inevitable that, you know, that Mr. T is going to come back. He's going to finish what he started in 2016, which is he's going to drain the swamp. And and pretty much what you've just said, you know, they're going to bring forth a new global system that is going to reform everything. Education, finance, government, it's going to be totally different. And from what they tell me is that the system is actually going to help usher in a whole new era for planet Earth. An era of sustainable energy resources, an era of economic opportunity for the people of the earth, an era where government is by the people and for the people, where we do have, you know, elected or what we call representative government. And most importantly, an era where people could finally live their ideas, their dreams, their whatever it is that their heart desires. But at the same time, I'm very, very rooted in what is known as the positive timeline. As you know, Michelle, right now, all of these alternative Earth realities where things could go in either direction within the spectrum of possibilities are all coexisting simultaneously. But there's going to be something that's going to cause some sort of a split, a bifurcation, as I call it, where you're going to have a positive timeline, and then you're going to have, unfortunately, a cybernetic tyranny timeline where things are going to go into the AI direction. Do you have any info on that, on the timeline split, or what are your thoughts?
So I don't get information in the same way that you do regarding the split. But in terms of the Mr. T still being in a role, I definitely always get that he's commander-in-chief. Mm-hmm. And so even though he might look like he's stepped back, for instance, or he stepped out, or he didn't win, or whatever it is they tell us, you know, the story, he is actually in the background the commander-in-chief, and always has been. In terms of the split, the way that I see that is basically about people that just, like you and I, we talk about certain things on a certain level, and you could be sitting next to somebody else in town. They don't have any idea what you're talking about. They don't see it the same way. To me, that's what the split is, that we have a level of people that are light workers and warriors that are at the front. And so we're creating the pathway for the others, and then coming up behind in different levels. And when I say levels, I don't mean anyone's better than anyone else. I just mean that it's like when you're climbing up a mountain, the people at the top, which would be us. We're already at the top, so we can see the entire vista. We can see it from all angles. But the people coming up the sides, they can only see the side that they're on. So I that's the way I always explain it to people. It's not that anyone's bad or good or better than anyone else. It's just that they're still making their journey to the top. So I think we're still going to see a lot of that. But hopefully we're going to, with the consciousness rising, all the time. I mean, Ishmael, I get up one day from the next and I can't even remember what I did the day before, because where the consciousness has jumped so quickly, it's almost like your brain's been overwritten. You can't even remember what you were doing yesterday or what day you're on or even year, and the time goes faster. So I think the split that I see is these splits, not just two, but splits in different levels of consciousness as people kind of, go up that spiritual mountain. I don't really get involved with the aspects that you talk about, the AI aspects. I don't really get those in my channeling, but I don't disagree that could be a possibility, but it's not something that they teach me directly.
I see. Okay. But we both could agree that the end of the cabal as we know it is here.
Well, when they teach me about the white hats and the dark hats, and consistently they've always told me since we've been doing this, Ishmael, which is what are we on our 4th year, I think now. They've always said to me that the white hats were in control from very early on, and I do believe, based on the teachings that I get, that's the case. And I do believe that the white hats were somewhere in the system for a number of years before that, maybe 25 years. And what they've been doing is infiltrating, going in, probably playing both sides to get the information they need, whilst weeding out the dark players. And then I think when we had the freaky event, 3 years ago, I think that was the big cleanup at that point. But I think they were getting ready way before. Many years before.
So it is true that a lot of these main players of the cabal have been taken to Gitmo. That is absolutely correct, right? And
so they don't tell me that either. They don't tell me about things like that, but they did explain to me that a lot of people that we've thought are bad have actually been coerced into a lot of those situations. So an example might be, if you look at, say, Justin Bieber, he was thrust into Hollywood at, say, age 12, let's say, and contracts were signed on his behalf, and then he's in it, and once you're in it, it's very difficult to get out. And what they've explained to me is that people like that, who later on were contacted by the white hats and did help them by giving information, or perhaps they overtly have been doing stage shows which show that other side, because to put it right in people's faces, what I've been told is that those people will go into something called quantum borders. And so dependent on how much they were coerced and how much they were doing that of their own free will depend on what levels of freedom they have within the quantum border. The quantum borders are also to keep them safe, because they've been giving information. So I think what you're going to see is, when we get this new setup, the transitional government that I've been talking about, some of the ambassadors are going to surprise you. Don't be surprised if you start seeing people that you thought were really bad dark hat players come out as ambassadors for reaching people on different levels of society. So that might be people in Hollywood, singers, actors that you didn't expect. So I don't know if you get that as well, Ishmael.
I did receive intel that there is a good portion of Hollywood that was never involved with the dark stuff, and that they're actually been trying to expose and have been working with the White Hats in the Alliance, and that explains why, you know, they took out Matthew, the guy from Friends. Was it last week?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
he was a good guy, obviously. But yeah, I was informed that there's even Hollywood itself is going to be reformed, and everything will be exposed. Now, you were speaking about the Q situation, the QFS. Like, you made a video about the QFS in the last few days, which I had an opportunity to watch, and you went in depth as to what this Q consciousness is all about. Would you be able to explain that a little bit for my audience who are unaware of what that means?
Yeah, I'll try. So most of my work is at locals.com because it's very difficult for me to talk about this stuff openly normally on YouTube or something like that. But the QFS, which stands for the Quantum Financial System, which most of us, I think, are aware of that term, that is actually just a practice platform. So if you imagine the QFS is over here, and that's the practice platform. And what they're doing with the practice platform is they're seeing which concepts can truly be devolved safely without any infiltration. And then on this side, you've got the Q financial system. And the Q financial system falls under Space Force. And that means it gets its Space Force Delta cybersecurity protection. So everything over here, they're just trialing it. So all the things you've heard about, the different cryptos, the different platforms, all the different things, Stellar, Ethereum, whatever it is, it's all being tested on the QFS over here. Mm-hmm. And the Q side is what will be the final pieces. So there isn't very much over this side at the moment. Over here at the moment, we have X.com, and we have the Trump Media Group, who oversee Truth Social. And Truth Social has just launched a crypto called the Defiant Ones, which is over here on the Q side. And that crypto will run through the X.com banking, which is also under the military arm. The reason they're under the military arm is not because the military are going to be in charge of our banking, that they're going to be in charge of securing it through the cybersecurity system, securing it for safety so that it can't be hacked, basically. That's what that means. It doesn't mean that the military are going to be telling us how we can spend our money or anything like that. It just means that that Delta Force, the Space Operations Command, they can make sure that any transactions over on this side are secure. And the reason that it's called Q as well is because a bit further down the line, we're going to have something called a Q Consciousness ID. And again, this is about so that our bank accounts and all of our different apps and things that we have right now, we have 101 passwords, and it seems that we can never get in, ISMAEL, but if you're a thief, everyone's in our accounts stealing everything. So it all needs to be secured. So what they've been channeling to me is that in the future, and this is very high sort of tech now, and I'm sure you probably understand it, ISMAEL, but we're going to be able to, they're going to be able to read us as a consciousness. So we'll just have, this will be our password, us. So the energy that we emit from our frequency, whether that be the toroidal field that goes through our heart creates a toroidal field, or it could be the delta wave in your brain. The delta wave is the sleep wave. And if you combine the sleep wave with the toroidal wave, your auric field, your fingerprint, your iris, you put them all together, you start to get a unique ID for each of us. Mm-hmm. And it's not going to be anything like we understand right now. There's going to be a different type of computer, something called something like neuromorphic computing. And And so what will happen is you'll just kind of, I suppose, I don't know for certain, I'm just learning this myself, but I suppose the computer will take a look at your face like it does now, but also it will be able to read all this energy around you, and it will know, oh, that's Ismael. And then you'll be able to access everything. You won't need to remember, password 1234 and like we have to do now. And this Q consciousness ID, my understanding is, again, that will be protected by the Space Force. Because Space Force essentially is not about going into space on spaceships, although that does exist, of course. It's about, Space Force is actually about the cybersecurity of the worldwide military peace plan.
So this is going to be different than what they're doing in China, which is using AI for face recognition. It's not going to be that, although it's similar to that, but not in a tyranny way, is what you're saying.
Yes, well, all of these systems, whatever system you have, can be used for good or bad. We know that. But the point of the ID system that I'm talking about is that it's unique to you. Because anything else, even face recognition, they can manipulate it, they can hack it. Anybody who's clever, anyone who knows how to operate a computer could make me look like you. We've seen that with, these apps that make you look like Tom Cruise or whatever, So that's already possible.
Yeah. I think it's all a deep fake.
Yes. So if we were going to want to fake the system right now and hack each other's bank accounts, that's possible already. We're already controlled by a lot of things already. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a decentralized system. So we're trying to have, like, say we have our phone and we want to do our banking. At the moment, we go through different banks, central banks, whatever. In the future, this device will recognize that it's you through your consciousness, and it will give you access to your bank, which will be linked to Space Force. And all the layers in between won't be as many as we have now. So the control in between will be much less because it won't be there anymore. You'll just be talking directly to the Space Force system, which will be, at the moment, I understand it to be Enbridge. And in terms of it being able to control, it'll be decentralized. So all your things will be here on your device. All of us. It won't be the things won't be in a central position for anyone to control it. That I'm probably not explaining it very well because I'm not reading out my channeling, and it's a very technical area. So I apologize if it sounds a lot.
No, you're doing fine, Michelle. I'm completely understanding what you're saying. Okay. Based on the chat, they're loving you.
Okay, so it's quite a difficult concept to understand, even for me that's getting this channel down, because we're looking at a system that's probably 8 years away. We don't have anything like it at the moment, but my understanding is it will be a system for freedom and not control. And that's how they've always explained everything to me. And of course, I don't know everything. I'm a channeler. But all I can say to people is this, that the things that they've given me to date, and we're now, as I said, nearly 4 years in, they've all come round. And so far, I can see how they're unfolding for freedom and not control. So when I first started speaking about Starlink, everyone was having a meltdown. It wasn't even live at that point. It was on beta. But now we now understand that system is a very integral part of how we secure the worldwide military peace plan. The worldwide military peace plan, for those people that don't know what that means, it means that all the countries around the world have been signing into an agreement that they will act in a certain way towards not just their citizens, but towards other countries. And so in order to be part of this peace plan and this cybersecurity, they have to agree to, first of all, not obviously harm their citizens, but also not to create war. Otherwise, what can happen is, because it's a centralized system, like a cake, and we're all in it, if Ishmael, you decided that say you were a country, and you decided, I'm going to harm my citizens, then the rest of us over here in the cake could lock you out of the cyber security that runs your banking, your internet, your communications, everything. And so in the future, we won't need to send bombs, we won't need to have weapons, we won't need any of that. We'll just say, Ishmael, if you don't behave yourself, we're going to cut off your banking, and that's going to be it. You won't be able to trade with the rest of the world. And so it's going to be, that's a very simplistic way, right. But that's how we're going to get world peace. And my understanding is, if you go and look at all these regions, they're all signed into something called the Artemis Accords, and they're all signed in the respect that they all have their own space agency. So, for instance, the UK have a space agency. Everybody has a space agency, and that's how we now can see the evidence of what I've been saying for quite a number of years. They are all signing in, and as I've explained before, space agency isn't because we're going out into space looking for ETs or anything like that. It's the space agency, in the way that I'm describing it, is about cybersecurity and keeping the world safe in terms of all these systems that we're trying to bring in, so that we can decentralize everything to the people.
Right. Now, I just want to make a clarification here that this quantum financial system, which is going to be associated with the Q consciousness, the QID, a way of identifying people through their vibrational frequency, through their energy, through what they emit, right, through their own frequency, it has nothing to do with artificial intelligence, right? It's a living consciousness, would you say, an organic consciousness?
So this part is the bit I don't understand fully yet. I don't understand if there's going to be some AI in there. That's the bit I don't know. So I can't answer that honestly at this moment, because the Q consciousness ID is something very new that's just started coming in for me. So I can only explain it so far as to where I currently understand it.
I see.
So my current understanding is that it's a system for freedom, and that obviously it's to keep all of our things safe so that we can have everything devolved. In terms of where we're up to in terms of creating it, my understanding is it's only a theory at the moment. I'm not sure that anybody even has the concept running anywhere at this point, and I just had a no. So it's like they know where the future of technology is headed, but I'm not saying that they actually have it running yet. So I'm getting this quite a long way out. So the AI question, I don't actually know the answer to that just yet.
Yeah, somebody's saying QFS is a placeholder for when the Q consciousness ID is ready.
Yes. So the Q consciousness is part of the Q banking system. So in the Q banking system, at the moment, you've got X.com banking, and you've got the Truth Social app. So you've got two apps there at the moment. Truth Social is going to run the Defiant One's crypto, which is going to go through the X.com banking platform. And overseeing it is Space Force. So Q just stands for the 17th letter. It's not the word quantum. So we've got quantum financial system over here, which is the placeholder, which is the experiment, which is seeing which bits actually can do what they say. And then as we work out, yes, that actually works, but that will probably be brought over to come under this Q or 17th letter financial system, which eventually will have this consciousness ID.
Yeah, I was told that the Q consciousness, which is going to be connected to everything through Starlink, through QFS, is going to be an organic consciousness that is directly related to the activation of the crystalline grid of the earth, because the crystals have memory. The crystals are living organic, you could say, entities in their own way. And this is the same technology that was actually misused during the times of Atlantis for nefarious purposes. So now it's in the hands of the good guys. Now what they want to do is they want to prevent what happened in Atlantis when they used the crystal technology for evil, and they want to use it for good. So that's what I was informed, and it seems like you're just confirming that, yes, it is not going to be an artificial type of consciousness, because there's no way an artificial consciousness could connect with all of our individualized consciousness without a chip or some sort of technological interface, which is, to me, sounds like the mark of the beast. It has to do it organically. It has to be something where it's going to be reading our thoughts. It's going to have access to our past, our history, everything we've ever did in every incarnation by literally just tapping into our energy signature via some sort of organic, symbiotic, you could say, symbiotic way. That's what I was informed.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Although I don't understand computing well enough to understand what that new computer might actually look like, because I'm not sure that anyone probably knows yet, to be honest. That, you know, we're probably trying to imagine what it's going to be, and it's just going to be so amazing. Like you said, it's going to be able to read our thoughts and everything like that. I don't even know how that's going to happen. But talking about the crystalline grid, we do actually have crystals in our pineal gland. So, I mean, it could be something like the pineal gland crystals could also maybe create a way for us to connect to that new system. We've got so many things on our own personalized, on each of us personally, that I think that's how they're going to try and bring this all together. But how they're going to do it, Ishmael, that's way above my pay grade. I just channel down what they explain to me. I don't actually make it, but I wish I was clever enough to do that.
Well, you know, I'm still learning. I'm still getting downloads, transmissions, and as I do, I share it with the Galactic Jedis. That's what I call my community here. I call them Galactic Jedis.
Nice. I like that.
Thank you. You know, we are Galactic Jedis in the sense that we recognize that, you know, we do have a cosmic origin, that we lived in many lives, that we are part of a greater galactic community, and, you know, we're going to use everything we have, all our abilities for good, right? And so that's why I call them Galactic Jedis.
Nice. That's very nice.
Thank you. Can you explain what, in your perception, what do you think the Starlink technology is all about? If you could like dive into that.
All these tough questions, Ishmael.
Well, so, I have a good crowd here that just they're like, they soak up the information, and they're hungry for knowledge, just like I am.
Yes. Okay. So Starlink, as we all know, is Musk is the face of it, but actually Musk is working for the military. So he's like he's the marketing man for bringing in all these new innovations. Because if the military came right out and said, you know, oh, we're going to create a centralized this, and we're going to make a fingerprint that, and a consciousness this, it wouldn't probably work very well. So what they've done is they've brought in Musk as a marketing man, if you like, the marketing front of what actually is going on behind. And so all those innovations that are going on, and military funded, in my opinion, I don't know that for certain, but I'm assuming that they're military funded, and there's probably other companies involved, not just the Musk, Tesla and people like that, and SpaceX, but there's going to be other private organizations behind all of that Musk marketing. And Starlink is now called Starshield. So when it first came to my understanding, when they started to channel about all of that, it was called Starlink, but it's now been bought by the military and is officially called Starshield. And it's not, and basically what that means is it's just a lot of satellites that are being put together to make that cake that I was talking about. And so all the countries are all adding their satellites to that cake. It's not just star shield. So every country, so in England you've got OneWeb, and in all the other countries, they'll all be sending up their version of whatever that is, and then you join them all together to make that big cake. And basically what it is it's just a communication system which is going to help to run all these devolved systems that we're talking about, which is why you need a space force to manage all of that, so it keeps it safe, keeps it running effectively. And the other thing that I think is important about that whole system is that, losing my train of thought, but I think that the Star Shield is what we actually have up there at the moment. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Sorry, Ishmael. They recently said to me that the other thing that the Star Shield is going to be capable of doing is, because it runs on toroidal energy, it's going to be able to create free energy for us. So that means that in the future, we're not going to need all of these electricity wires that we have all over the place, and those big towers that are sending out different types of energy that are not good for us. The actual Star Shield, my understanding is that SpaceX is creating a system where it can bounce energy, electricity essentially, and when they work out how to do that in space, they're going to translate that into doing it on the ground. And so you're going to have something like a Tesla tower, which is like a toroidal donut, and it's going to be able to bounce energy from one to the other. So you're not, and it's natural, just comes from the atmosphere. So you're not going to need all these wires, and that's where your sustainable energies are going to start coming in that you were talking about. So that's something else that I've recently put out on a video that came to me.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up the way we're going to use energy in the future is by tapping into this toroidal field, which is going to give us inexhaustible, unlimited power, a limited power that is actually healthy for the planet. And that's one of the ways in which a Type 1 civilization, also known as an interplanetary civilization, harnesses energy. They don't harness energy the way we have been doing it for the last few hundred years. They do it by tapping into the toroidal field of spheres. For instance, the planet is a toroidal field. So what they do is they tap into the toroidal field of planet Earth, and they are able to harness energy beyond what we've been doing for the last 300 years.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense.
Someone who's very clever told me that everything is a toroidal field all the way down to the actual DNA in our cells. It all operates in the same way. So it's very clever, that concept. And it will bring in, if what they've discovered they can do in space, create this bounce, they told me it was called a bounce system. I mean, I'm actually going to probably fall off my chair if, SpaceX announced that they've brought in something called a bounce system, because that would be, so all of you that are listening, if that happens, that I've fallen off my chair, because that when they explain these very technical things to me, they do it in a very simplistic way so that we can all understand it. And so they called it a literal bounce. You bounce it from one antenna to the next. So if they do actually come out with that as a formal title, I think we're all going to be quite shocked.
That is true, and that's the proper and more safer way to harness energy.
Yes.
Through what they call torsion fields. And that's how the breakaway groups, those that are part of the secret space programs, that's what they've been doing, over 70 years now. And the private I know that talking about breakaway groups and secret space programs is probably not your forte, but you did mention something earlier that actually is related to a treaty that was signed near Jupiter on the moon known as Ganymede, which is the headquarters for what they call the Positive Alliance. Space Alliance. You mentioned the Artemis Accord.
Yes.
Artemis Accord. Can you tell us what you know about the Artemis Accord?
So my understanding of, I only got that name recently. I've been channeling for all these years, these last 3 years, that there would be this peace plan, but I didn't actually know what the official name for it was, the documented name. And then I found out it was the Artemis Accords. Now, the Artemis Accords, my understanding of it, is what people sign in order to be able to operate in space if they're not part of the military. Okay, so if you're part of the military, you're signing, government military type orders, treaties, and protocols. But if you're, say, let's imagine you're, and let me just think of an example. Let's imagine you're SpaceX, right? And you're a company. You're a company, you're not military, you're a company, and you're called SpaceX, and you want to make something and put it in space, then my understanding of the Artemis Accords is that you sign the agreements of how you're going to operate while you're doing business in space. So it's like a private organization's way of keeping them tied into the protocols. So you've got the military agreements up here, and I'm not sure what the military agreements would be called. And then you've got any kind of business that wants to make a satellite, or it wants to make a component that's going to be in space, or it wants to trade with, Musk wants to trade with China, and it's about something in space. Because that's private organization, they still have to sign into a set of rules, if you like, on how they operate. Because, you can't just have everybody up in space doing what they want. So it's kind of like to keep everybody in a well-behaved manner, I suppose. That's the way I see it.
And that is correct. I just want to confirm that that was its whole intention since its inception. In 2019, I believe, 2020, that's when they rolled out. That's when they signed the Artemis Accord Treaty, which actually was done by Solar Warden and the defectors of the negative, malicious, you could say, breakaway groups that were working with the Draconians. And then part of that deal was also about taking back the colonies and bases from the Dark Fleet and the interplanetary corporate conglomerate, who were actually conducting nefarious businesses with different types of aliens within our solar system. So it was a way to kick out the bad guys, and it was a process. It took us a couple of years, but it was also a way to make sure that only positive things are being negotiated here within our space vicinity, within our solar system. So yeah, I mean, you pretty much nailed it on the dot. That was awesome.
Well, actually, Ishmael, it's fascinating listening to your information, because what people may or may not know is that my background is in angels. So surprisingly, before the Freaky flu, I used to teach people how to connect with angels and masters. And so I was as surprised as everybody else when I started getting these channelings about military, where we're headed, the military plan and things like that. So I always find it fascinating when I hear about you talking about the bit above, because I obviously get the God consciousness and the angels part. But I've never had a lot of information about the ETs like you get. So I find that fascinating, because it all fits together. They all have different roles. So it's very, I just enjoy hearing what you have to say.
Likewise, Michelle, likewise. I think when I first found out about you was on Nicholas Veniamin, because you were a frequent guest on his show for a while, as I was at one point. But then,
we've both been sacked, Ishmael. What's happened?
Well, they're coming after the best of us. They don't want, the truthers to tell the truth, right?
Yeah. I
do have a question for you. Do you mind taking a few? Well, first of all, how much time do we have left? We're about 48.
Oh, I'm fine. Yeah, if your audience would like to ask questions, I'll do my best.
Okay. I did put a question up on the screen here.
Yes.
Can you see it?
Yeah. Is this September during the end, the time when the EBS with GESARA will be activated? Right. So my understanding is that we're not going to have an emergency broadcast system. We're going to have a peace broadcast system. And the Truth Social app is a military-based app. And that means that when everything, or if everything, was to be attacked by, say, a cyber outage or something like that, then the Truth Social app system should continue to run. So that would be your peace broadcast system. GESARA is, in my opinion, lots of layers of things that are already being put into position, and I'm not sure it's going to be one big switch over day or anything like that. I think it's going to be a gradual introduction of different things. So whether it's going to be September, sorry, the question was would it be September? I'm getting a no. So I don't think so. I don't think we're going to see any dramatic, this is just, my channeling and feeling right now. I don't think we're going to see any dramatic financial changes until we get through this next election event. Because as I've previously explained, in the background, they're setting up all the devolved systems. And in order to have those devolved systems, we've got to have the cybersecurity above it all set up and ready to run it. And so really the timeline is based on how quickly they can get that up and running. And so I don't know the answer to that. But in the past, they've always said to me that 2026/27, those were important times for all of this cyber levels that we've been talking about. That's when it will probably go live to the public. So I don't want you all to get disheartened thinking, oh, we've got to wait. No, you haven't got to wait for anything. It's already being done. But it's being done in the background, and it's being gradually introduced stage by stage, because this is a worldwide project. You can't just unleash it all overnight. That's the way that it's been explained to me. Okay. Great solar flash. Okay. So the great solar flash, I know that you talk about that a lot, Ismael. They don't actually tell me about a great solar flash, but what they do explain to me is, again, going back to the mountain analogy, that it will be these upgrades that we keep having. Like I was explaining, I get up one day and I can't remember what I did the next because I've upgraded overnight. I think it's going to be a lot of those, and some are going to be more intense than others. We're having some pretty intense energies through this month. I think it's just going to be more of that personally. But I know that Ismael gets specific information about that. And so far, I haven't had that. Okay. Which doesn't mean that Ishmael's wrong. It just means that I haven't had that information, so I can't say about it.
Yeah, you channel the angels and archangels, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I work with the Galactic Alliance, but overall they're all part of the same team. They're all working for Prime Creator Source, and they have one objective or one endeavor in common, and that is to bring forth the liberation of planet Earth. For sure. Mm-hmm. And it also means that when I channel angels and archangels, they can only teach from a position of love. They have no ego. Mm-hmm. And so the teachings, they come out in a different way to say, maybe when you're speaking to your people, they can talk in a different way because they have some ego. And that I don't mean that in a derogatory way. What it means is that the angels are only unconditional love. And so they act on instruction. Do they act on us requesting help, or they act on what God's asked them to do? And that's what they've chosen to be, angels.
that serve. And then you have other beings in the planet that do different things. They might be an ascended master, or they might be an ET or something like that. And in order for them to do their job, they have to have a certain level of ego, because the ego is what allows us to make decisions. You can't just be floating around with unconditional love if you need to get things done. Only angels can do that because they're acting under instruction. But if you need to get other things done, then the other beings need to have an element of ego within their makeup. So it's not a bad thing to have some ego.
Medbeds. Somebody's asking, are they coming out and when?
Well, I have some amazing technology already in my house called RIFE machines, scalar machines, plasma machines. It's all in my house already. I think basically it's all of those technologies that over time, again, we will learn how to maybe put all of those things together into one unit, and that will be linked to our consciousness ID. And those two things together, I think, will be what forms the medbed. And what you were saying, Ishmael, about the crystal grid, I think you'll line everything up. It'll all line up. And that will we will essentially be our own medbed.
Absolutely. I've always believed that we have what it takes to heal ourselves when we begin to activate our crystalline. Again, everything goes down to our crystalline genetics. This is another question.
Yeah. So I've never really looked into that, but people that have looked into that, they say I'm an angel. I'm from the angelic realms.
Yeah, I could actually attest to that there are some of us down here that are not ETs in human form, but are actually angels incarnated in human form. I was told that there's even some archangels down here as well, they have, you could say, projected a portion of their consciousness into a human avatar. And they're operating here, they're operating there, but that's what I was told.
Yeah, that's fascinating, because an angel can manifest as a human being anyway, regardless of me. If you just ignore me for a minute, if you're in a crisis and it's not your time, say, to pass, or you're having a really bad time in your life, you will have stories. You'll hear stories of people saying that somebody came to me and they said something to me and they helped me in a certain way, that they could only have been an angel. I've had experiences of that many times. And you often hear about those experiences when people had, say, a car accident, and they have people talking them through it while they're there waiting for the emergency services. And they're saying, you're going to be fine, and I'm here, and no one's leaving you. And then the emergency services come and they get them out. And then the people will say, can you thank that man that helped me? And the emergency services will say, but there was nobody here when we arrived. It was just us. So that's there's a lot of evidence of angels appearing in human form, especially in times of crisis.
Right, I agree. I'm just looking for questions, random questions to ask. Was there an angel present during Mr. T's first assassination attempt? Absolutely. I mean, I think so.
Well, around the assassination attempts, I think there are more than one version of people that look like him.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think
talk about that. I talked about how there are a couple of Trumps.
Yes.
More than two.
I don't think that where you see somebody stood out in a crowd with no glass and no nothing in front is probably the real Mr. T. I think the real Mr. T, and when that all happened, they didn't want to talk about it very much, because obviously the people I channeled tried to keep us calm and giving us a positive feedback. But what they did say to me was that Mr. T was very well insulated when that event happened. So what I think that meant was that I don't think he was actually even there. And I know that's confusing because I look at these people sometimes. It's very hard sometimes to tell what's going on. But it would make sense to me that somebody so important as the Commander-in-Chief of the Worldwide Military Peace Plan would not be standing up in a crowd of that many people, that, you know, the dangers are just too much. So I always assume, rightly or wrongly, that the people that are important to us, like Mr. T, is not going to be put in any position of danger like those attempts. But what they do is they bring more dialogue to Mr. T. So there's more people talking about it, and that raises the profile of what's going on, which is what we need to be doing right now.
Right. Well, it makes a lot of sense because one of the transmissions I got a few months back, which actually I did a live on, was how there was also a doppelganger or a duplicate of JFK Sr. And so the real JFK was actually safeguarded before the Texas event. And that explains why he, you know, he was still alive, and he's still alive from what I get. But it makes a lot of sense why they have double sometimes when they're really important people.
You know, there could be clones as well. I don't really understand cloning either. That's something else that's a bit baffling for me. But I do have the ability to see into a crystal ball or a reflective image. And I did see in a crystal ball that I have in my house an image of what looked like a clone of Mr. T. And it had like a pipe attached to the head, and that was attached to something like maybe a charging system or something like that. And normally when I get the visions in there, they're very accurate and clear. So there could also be something like clones going to these events, these rallies, things like that. As I said, again, I don't really understand all that type of technology. I don't understand how they do it, but I don't think that our true gem, our Mr. T, is stood on a podium, you know, with no screens and all that we get shown. I think he's very well protected.
I agree. I agree. Any other questions from the crowd? What about Mr. Musk? How many of him are there?
I think there's quite a few, because one week he looks like the model from a GQ magazine, a bit like Ismael. And then the next week he looks like he needs to go to the gym, right? So I think the real one.
Oh, sorry, I don't know.
We're having a technical hiccup. I think the real one, if you look at him from a side profile, he has quite an elongated neck where he's probably looking at technology all the time. So if you're a chiropractor, if you ever go to the chiropractor, they'll say to you, don't look at your phone like this all day long, because you'll get like a hump on your neck. And as you have to remember to keep your phone up like this. And when you, I always remember that the chiropractor told me that when I look at Musk, the real Musk, because the real Musk has got a really bad problem with that on the back of his neck, and he's a little bit overweight, bless him. But the other ones, like I said, they can all look at quite a lot more attractive than the one which is the real one. That's my opinion anyway. That's what I think. I think they send out the stand-ins, the GQ models for all these events, personally. What do you think about that, Ismael?
Well, many people believe that there was an Elon 2.0, that the original one was taken out because he was pure evil. But I'm starting to see that Elon he's gray. He plays both sides, and he's in the middle. And he's also very important in this transition. I'm actually going to be doing a series on him next Saturday as well. I started last Saturday, but I'm going to do a continuation.
Any of you have ever watched that series Ray Donovan? Now, Ray Donovan is a guy, he's a fixer. goes in and he sorts out bad people that have done bad things, but he does it for good reason. So, for instance, if in has hurt, say, a child, then Ray Donovan will go in as a good guy, but he might sort that bad guy out. Now, in terms of whether that's legal, obviously it's not. But sometimes good people have to do bad things. And so my feeling is, with a lot of these things, when we're trying to make judgment, if you've been brought up in a family that's done a certain thing when you were a child, I think sometimes you have to think, like the Justin Bieber story, to what extent did they have freedom to be, who they wanted to be, because they were brought up in a certain way. But then if later on they redeemed themselves and showed themselves to be someone that wants to be good, I think we should judge them from those behaviors rather than who their parents were, because none of us have a choice as to, who our parents were. We were children. We had to be in that environment. So I do sometimes think we have to, put aside some judgment and see now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Thank you for sharing.
I mean, also you have to play both sides in this game to get before. You're going to see some names that might shock you in the future setup, because you'll will have been told, these people were paedophiles, they were involved with this and that and what have you. And it could be that, yes, they were involved with those people, but they might have been in there to get the information. You've got to have people in there to get the information, so they have to play the role that they're part of it in order to bring the information back. So we have to be careful when we are saying this person's bad, this person's good, this person's this person's that, because you might find in the future the people that you thought were these bad people were actually putting themselves at a lot of risk in order to bring about all these changes that we're going to see in the future. So in that sense, they're very good souls because they chose to do that for us.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for the heads up so that we're not too shocked. When will they televise military tribunals?
Well, I haven't ever been told they're going to do that, funnily enough.
Because it's already happening from behind the scenes, right?
Yeah, I mean, they've never actually, they don't normally tell me about things like that as such. What they have told me is that about the quantum borders and how they'll work, like I briefly explained before, that perhaps if you were kind of involved with some things that you shouldn't have been involved in, but you didn't have 100% choice, then they might keep you in what's called a quantum border, so that you do have an element of freedom. You can still live your life, but maybe you can't fly out of the country, or you can earn over a certain amount of money. So you're having a bit of a punishment, but you're not locked up in a cell or anything like that. They haven't ever talked to me about actual military tribunals, but just thinking about it right now, I think most of that stuff's all been done anyway. I think that's all been done. It's in the past. I think most of it, everything's been cleaned now.
Even the underground tunnels and bases and all that.
Well, what I was referring to was things like organizations that we've thought are corrupt, like the UN and people like that. I think those organizations have had people in there a long time cleaning them out, or should I say exposing what's going on. And so I don't think we have to worry about them so much anymore, because they're either going to be disbanded completely anyway, or they've made good progress whilst they've been in there. So an example might be like the 3-letter agencies, the cybersecurity departments of the 3-letter agencies will already be clean. But there might be some other departments where they're still needing to, still do some work.
Mhm.
The other one, the C, the I, and the A, I think that's going to be disbanded. I think that's going to go completely.
Absolutely.
In fact, I'm going to be channeling that actually for my next video.
Yeah, I think most of the 3-letter agencies are going to be like what Kennedy said, dismantled into millions of pieces. Well, with that have said, is there anything that you want to leave us with, Michelle? Where can people find you? Any events, anything that you're going to be doing that you want to share with us?
Okay, so I can't normally put my materials in the normal places like YouTube and things. So you can normally find me at locals.com. And you can find access to all the other places that I post by finding me at Telegram. And I have a website called goldenheavenonearth.net. So I think that's quite a lot of references already.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't know if there's any. I mean, there's lots of platforms I'm on, but the main way to find me is to go to Telegram or to go to locals.com.
And what is your website?
goldenheavenonearth.net.
Got it. So what I'll do, are all your links in your website? Can they access your Telegram and everything to your website? Or should I put everything individually in the description?
I think if you just put locals.com or something like that, it should, people can probably find me easily enough.
Locals, as in LOCALS?
Yes, it's just a platform where we don't get censored. A bit like Truth Social, you can put whatever you want on there. Although, we've just had that arrest of the CEO of Telegram. You're going to see a lot more of that. That's another storyline where they're trying to bring people's attention to the censorship. But ultimately, if you're going to start prosecuting people that run apps and platforms, then why are they not arresting everybody who runs Google and Microsoft and any platform, actually? Because you can't control the people. I don't feel like the CEO of a company is responsible for what we do. If you and I, Ismael, as adults, post something on a platform which we shouldn't be doing, then we should be targeted, not the platform owner, because this is how we need to get to decentralized maturity. That if we want to be in a decentralized world, we have to take responsibility for what we do. So I'm actually going to be putting that on a video as well, because you could say, in effect, that people that are sending emails all over and everywhere, why are they not arresting everybody on every platform? Because if you create an app, you can't control what all the people do all of the time. Mm-hmm. So that's just my opinion of that.
All right. Well, Michelle Fielding, it was a great honor and pleasure to have you here. And